All right. So I want to go ahead and just dive in because this might take a little minute. So if y'all were here last week, or if you come after the live or you watched it afterwards, if you recall me talking about how going back to basics is pretty much the best way to recover or to strengthen yourself in, I guess, whatever current position that you're in. And I was sharing like a lot of the mental fog and other things that were taking place that made that difficult for me to be able to navigate. And I realized through all of that mental fog that it was really just because I forgot about the basics. Like little things would kind of pop up like here and there, but even within that, it was still difficult for me to remember to basically get my footing back and like root myself down. I had to recall the lessons I learned from just observing nature, being like a tree, remaining rooted. Hey, thank you for joining the live. So just remember to remain rooted and remembering who I am. And I do mean I am in like the capital letters. So in that, I started recalling a lot of the hermetic principles that I had learned a couple of years ago. There, in which it's like stuff that I kind of, it's like I knew it without knowing. And by that, I mean, with me, like going through it, I was like, oh, yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense because a lot of stuff that's actually very simple is probably deeper than, it may seem like at face value. So I make this akin to like I can't remember that some type of phenomenon in nature where it's like some type of pond or something like that. It might be larger than a pond. Don't hold me, y'all. And when you step up to it, you think it's shallow. But bonjour, hey Lauren, thank you for joining. So like when you step up to it, you shallow, you step into it, and then you realize no, this is actually some type of deep abyss, and you feel a lot further than you actually initially anticipated. That's the way I think about these thoughts and these patterns. So thank you for joining. I know a little bit of French, just a little bit, so I just say merci beaucoup, but I do appreciate you joining. So and that's where I pretty much, again, the way that I look at these principles and how to carry out these laws, which are just the laws of the universe, that have actually helped me in my younger years and in my current years, but me losing my footing, losing my grounding, has pretty much kind of like shifted me off of it. So for the past couple of days, I pretty much like rerouted myself and I was like, okay, what's my foundational teachings? And remembering that the all is mind and the universe is mental. And we're all reincarnations or essence or images of God, however you want to place it or put it, but it still goes back to that same foundation. There in which us being images of God, the essence of God, just walking amongst each other, we are all that expression, us being tiny universes within ourselves. Therefore, if the all is mind, that means we are also part of said mind, and therefore our little universe is also a part of us being able to make everything, in essence of that as well. So if the all is mind, the universe is mental, that means that everything around us is just a result of our own mental state. So you see, a lot of things pretty much falling apart. And that's not to say that everything externally is also supposed to be, an example of what you need to just do, um, you know, internally, but more so like your internal is reflected outward through your external world and your external state. So if you're continuously dealing with certain things on the external and you're having certain issues, you need to start looking within yourself and seeing like, okay, what evidences do I have within me or what's going on within me to have this projected outward. So personally for me, I can just say this. With a lot of stuff that I was dealing with, it was literally because of the thoughts and the mental state that I had placed around those things. And when I was like, you know what, let me test something real quick. So I said, what if I do like the complete opposite, just flip to the other side of the pole? Like instead of saying like, man, I feel like these folks really might be out to get me for whatever reason. And I shift them like, no, nah, they actually really respect me and they appreciate me and they're just gaining understanding because they're trying to get to know me. When I say my whole experience for that week shifted, like instantly, it wasn't even too much more further than that. And then going deeper than that, because then I started piecing together, I was like, okay, what things do I want to see changed in my reality? And so I wrote my list down. And then I'm starting to actually sit and think about, like, okay, how would I feel if I had those things? Once you have that feeling, you start maintaining that feeling and living on that vibration. Once I was on that vibration, I was like, okay, now what are some possible undercurrent things that are happening with my subconscious? Why did I deviate to my subconscious thoughts? Because our subconscious is really what our outer world is reflected to be like. So whatever you're experiencing on your outer world is really with your subconscious. Yeah, because there are some people, like for example, so somebody that probably claims that they're confident and all this other stuff, but deep inside you probably paying attention to them. And if you know yourself, you know that self, you can know the selves of others. You could pretty much look at them and be like, yeah, this motherfucker is not confident like at all. So even within that, you could pretty much recognize their inner world, probably even more so, or maybe even deeper, especially if they're not getting to know themselves or they're just trying to project an image towards everybody else, that they're not really that confident. And you can see it reflected out in their external world, because in their internal world, genuinely, they know they don't feel confident about themselves or about whatever avenue or whatever it is they claim to be confident about or want to be bravo in. And so I know I posted just a few minutes ago, I was like, I hope y'all got snacks, water, drinks, juices, whatever, because this one is gonna take like probably more than 20 minutes, because I really want to step into me really regrounding myself. And actually I just really went back through my book. This is my book, the Kabbalion, and it discusses a lot of the Hermetic philosophies, around just the basics of the universe. And from there, because a lot of things is even in art, like martial arts, that's why if you have a good sensei or sifu or whomever you're studying from that's teaching you the art, they'll always make you drill the basics, rerun the basics. They don't care if you've been here for 2 weeks, 2 years, 20 years. Rerun them basics. Why? Because it's an art style. So from those basics, you can get creative and adjust it to whatever scenario you need to adjust it to, so that way you can come out on top. However, you're trying to make that for your universe. Now, within that, that art style, we're also creative within our own mind, which I'm going to touch on in just a bit as well, because we also have that masculine feminine principle within our own mind. Hence why we create thoughts and ideas that project out from there. And from that point, that's when we're actually going to create the external world that we want to see or we want to be in. And so I got some notes, because me, I will ramble on forever and I'd be like, what were we talking about? So let's start off with the principles. So it touched on 7 principles that are all rooted in the laws of the universe. So the first principle I'm going to touch on is mentalism, which is basically what I've already stated. The all is mind and the universe is mental. We were all created from a thought. No matter what path you walk, if you walk any type of path, or maybe you don't walk any religion, or maybe you learn from all spiritual practices, because we all are of the conscious knowing, hopefully at this point, that each and every path still leads back to heaven, or the essence, the creator, the one, the overarching, the all, or as some states, God, heaven, all of that. It's all a mental state. Even if you look at certain other religions, they make it clear in their text that even just heaven, I know a lot of people have been taught to believe within the confines of religion that heaven is actually this external place beyond the clouds, somewhere in the ethers, I don't know how many black holes you got to pass to get to heaven. Like, they don't even know. They just telling you it's up and above. It's an external source outside of you. But even in Christian philosophy, if you actually read text, please read the text. A lot of people always say that, they know it in and out, stuff like that, but really you just go to church and you get some type of snippet from the doctrine, and then you and yourself just being more of a sheep and not really actually stepping out yourself and actually creating a relationship and getting that knowledge and understanding on your own part is kind of problematic, because you're just following a doctrine. You're not really actually following the philosophy that is being taught to you, and that is also before you open the page and read a book. But anyway, I don't know why I thought about reading Rainbow right then. But yeah, but even within that text, it lets you, they clearly state that God, Jesus, lives within you. The seed is in your heart. You would know the state of any man by the state of their heart, how they feel. That explains a lot. Like, they even in the external is reflected upon that person's heart, because you can tell by like what's going on with them externally and things of that nature, and how they're approaching matters, because that shows you the type of heart. This is where heaven sits at. It's a state of mind. Hell is a state of mind. And I'm sure you've probably heard this probably like a million times, depending on how y'all came across this channel. But if you haven't, I'm saying it now. Heaven and hell is just a state of mind. It is not this place necessarily external from you. You create your own heaven, or you can create your own hell with just a simple thought. Hence, back to the point of us going back to basics. So, mentalism. It all starts up here. It all starts with a thought. And that's where it had me at, like I said a couple of days ago, when I recall, like, all of this started, it literally all started from a thought. All of it. So once I shifted that thought and figuring out how I can shift that thought and maintain that shift of thought, because at some point you're going to try to, no, it's not really you, but your external world, or the vibrational frequency that you're on, that essence, because it's an entity within itself, is going to try to make you remain in that space. So is going to try to do little things to try to pull you out of you shifting your own reality. But in reality, bro, all this shit is just a fucking game, really. Like, you can shift it at any point in time that you truly convict yourself to do so. So that's the first one. It's mentalism, state of mind. Now the second one, getting a little deeper, is correspondence. So the law of correspondence goes as follows, and I'm sure you've heard this depending on if you practice any other religion, especially in Western religion, that as above, so below. I like to add as within is without as well, as we know, because the all is mind and the universe is mental. So with that being said, everything that you're going to experience on the external is always going to be reflected on the internal. Let's see. I'm sorry. I've been going. I haven't really been looking at the comment section. I'll probably I'll probably talk to y'all in just a second. But but back to the point that I was still getting to. So the correspondence as above is also as it is below. It's also still reflective of your state of mind. So that'll be another key factor. If you're looking at something, or you see that life or whatever is going in a certain way that you're really not trying to have it go, or this isn't really where you prefer to be at, that's a sign for you to go ahead and check back within yourself to see like what's going on and why can't you reach that step. So the next principle I wanted to touch on also is vibration. And this one, when I first learned about the principle of vibration, that one had really sent me, because very much so, very interested in science growing up. I used to read that everything on a molecular level is always moving, and it really blew my mind as a kid, because I'm like, even solid objects, even things that appear to be being still, yes, it's an illusion to our eye that it's actually being still, but in reality, those molecules are still moving. Some faster than others, some slower than others. They are still moving. You know, everything vibrates. Nothing is without motion in this universe. And because everything vibrates. Um, that's like I said, that got me as well. Each thought that you have is also accompanied by a certain vibration. Like everything, like no matter how small it vibrates. So let's see. And so the next one that we have is polarity. So everything is dual. So hot and cold, acid, alkaline, even whatever thought processes you may have. Something that seems sad, happy, bad, good, you know, love, hate, everything is the same thing because they're all on the spectrum. So when we're looking at the principle of polarity, they have poles, the pairs of opposites, but even though they seem different, they're all doing the same thing. And so, for example, acid can melt things, but also if it's too alkaline, that can also melt things as well. Or something even simpler than that, hot and cold. Something's too hot and you touch it or it touches you, it can burn. Same thing with ice. They can also burn you as well if something is too cold. And it's like I said earlier, it's really stuff that is actually that simple that you would not realize how much more deep it really is. And so once we attribute that to our thoughts and our state of mind, if we're really not feeling like what's happening on the external, we have to first of all figure out what programming or thought that is that's giving us that state of mind. And then from there, having that state of mind, we figure out what's on the opposite polarity so that way we could try to neutralize it. So that principle of polarity is something I was also practicing as well, and that one was also being helpful too. So the next principle that I want to touch on is also the principle of rhythm. So everything flows out and in. It has tides. If you want to think of anything in nature, as an example, I like to think of the ocean. The way I like to look at it is that things tend to ebb and flow as the waves come in to the shore. They also wash back out, and it's just a repeated cycle. It's one of the laws of the universe. Things that rise tend to fall. You know, like you always hear people say, like things that go up must come down at some point. That's just the law. That's just our law of the universe. And within that, that's where the rhythm is complicated at. And so within that rhythm, you know, rhythm falls in between the states of like polarity. So one extreme, another extreme, and in between that you got the rhythm, or as some people refer to as the spectrum. And on that spectrum, with that rhythm, we are excuse me. It's kind of like when you're in that mental state, you have to be the one to figure out what you're going to allow and refuse in your emotional world. So let's say something happened on the external world that probably tried to convince you that whatever you were trying to manifest or curate isn't going to happen because this bad thing happened, or like, man, everything's going wrong, like nothing's going to happen. When in reality, instead of allowing that pendulum to swing, because the pendulum is going to swing no matter what, that's also another part, that's another law, it's another factor of our universe. The question is, are you going to allow that to take itself with you, or are you going to remain in your own state of being? So you can still remain. Let's say you finally curated the type of life with a state of mind or emotional place that you want to be in. Once you actually reach that point, that is the point that you want to stay in. And so, as the pendulum's gonna swing, because it's gonna swing, you're gonna have things. Life does not stop just because you reached a pinnacle or a point that you've been trying to get to. Within that pinnacle or that point, once you're there, you maintain that state of mind of being like, okay, you allow it to flow in and flow back out. Any emotions like, okay, yeah, that happened, but just as easy as it came in, you need to let that also flow back out and just stand strong in who you are and knowing what you're withholding, what you're experiencing. So if you're still going to maintain a state of mind like, okay, yes, that happened, but that changes nothing about my universe and the world that I'm creating for myself. It is still going to be the same. Hence, how you can work with that law of rhythm. The next one that I was going to touch on is cause and effect. So, as simple as it sounds, cause and effect. Everything that has a cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. Everything that you see beyond you right now is a consequence and a subsequence of something that has already taken place before. Everything has a cause and effect. And so, with that being said, if you're looking at it from your state of mind, it's like, okay, I I'm only thinking this way because of the effects that came from this. But what if I generate a different cause, allow yourself to ascend to a higher plane? And now you generate a different cause because every thought has a vibration, which therefore from that vibration is going to create some type of polarity. And within that polarity is going to be a rhythm. And so now you're creating a whole new frequency, a whole new state of mind, which is causing everything else to be affected and to change outside of you and around you. So the next thing also, I know I'm kind of hitting on some stuff, is real quick, is also just gender. And not about gender, but gender also as in your state of mind and within your own consciousness. Your gender of your thoughts. Okay. So this one is one that I'm kind of like, I it's like I get it in its essence, but still trying to be able to convey this in a way that's not like super confusing. So you have your feminine thoughts or your feminine state of mind, and then you have your masculine state of mind. So your feminine state of mind is the one that is more impressed upon. Your masculine state of mind is the one that you express with. So the feminine state of mind is more subjective, emotional, kind of more creative within its thoughts, not really trying to be too solid. It's willing to accept in those energies or frequencies or those other thought processes. This is also the type of state of mind that you will be in if you're probably learning something new or you're learning about something for, differently or whatever. That's something that's impressed upon you. That's something you're going to internalize versus from your masculine state of mind. That's the part of you that expresses. That is the part of you that is confident or stable in what you're trying to put out. And they are all dictated by the conviction that you have within yourself. What do you know of versus what do you think or just believe, or you're like, maybe so, consideration, it's not that deep to me. All of these things determine the strength there in which your masculine and your feminine minds actually cultivate the thought in your inner world, and therefore from your inner world is creating your outer world. And so with all of that pretty much kind of being said about the principles, that's where I pretty much was like, okay, well, let me test this out. Let me try some. So, in doing so, I've actually started changing some things. I'm actually seeing a lot of stuff in my external world already change. Some stuff changed very quick. I see other things that are already on the way. And then other stuff, I'm like, okay, I don't see it immediately in the physical world, but I already know it's there because I've already created this in my mental world. So if I've already created this, because all is mind, the universe is mental, I know it's on the way. So because I know that it's already on the way, me, I'm not really too focused on, like, I can get excited about it. It's kind of like having like your Amazon package or whatever delivered. Once you purchase it and they tell you your package has been shipped, you might get excited or whatever, but you already know, like, hey, I know I'm gonna get this in a few days. I feel good about it. But also, you know, not allowing your state of mind or whatever or your essence to kind of just be so easily swayed. At least that's me. I try not to be so easily swayed by like states of emotions because I know emotions aren't that stable. They come and they go. But I also know that they are powerful enough to generate our outer world. So, I'm just like, it's coming. Like, or better yet, it's already here. I'm just waiting for this plane to catch up, pretty much, in a sense, if you want to look at it that way. But I'm already enjoying having that within the mental plane. So, now that I'm mentioning like physical planes and mental planes, like another thing that I also learned from my studies is that there are also three great planes. And this is the great physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. Not necessarily in that order, but just for expression. And within those planes, there are seven subplanes behind that. And then within those seven subplanes, each of those seven subplanes have seven minor planes under that. So they didn't really touch on that. Honestly, that's the next thing I really would like to learn about, because if I could figure out like what plane are we actually on, like, or the sub plane, or however deep it goes. But that's just me, y'all. I like to learn new stuff. So that's me. So once I learn that, if it's something worth sharing, if I see me practicing it and it actually creating something amazing in life or in my life, or something I'm like, yo, I should really share what I have from these thought processes, I share it. But so now that kind of leads to some of the conclusive thoughts on how to really practice these things. Uh, Somebody said they want to share a perspective. That's fine. I'm kind of like, you know, in and out right now, so I'm definitely gonna be talking to the chat like in a second about everything. But just to keep that flow going, I'm gonna go ahead and go on with the thoughts. So the last thing I want to touch on from my notes is like a lot of the hermetic axioms. So within the hermetic axioms, that I thought was very important for this is that you can change your vibration at will, which we pretty much got from the first principle of mentalism. If you want to change it, you could change it just like that, and just know that once you change it, it's already yours. Um, but from your will directs to attention, and then attention changes the vibration because your attention generates a thought process around that will, which we get vibration, like we said earlier. Um, and then that within that, if you can learn how to master your own moods and emotions, like manifestation is going to be like nothing. It'll be just like that. And from there, we can also learn how to neutralize certain mental vibrations. So let's say you're already on a certain mental plane. Well, we all are. You're already on a certain mental plane, but you want to change it. The best way to neutralize it is literally to go ahead and swing it to the complete opposite side of it. So, like I said, for example, a lot of people probably deal with money issues. Okay, you're used to this mindset. This is probably your outlook on money. Every time you think about money or finance or anything, you probably think about stress, all the horrible times and experiences you probably had when it came to finances. Okay, denote each and every one of those moods and experiences that you had. And then once you get into a relaxed or meditative state, then you can go into your subconscious and change your inner world and shift it from, hey, this is a terrible experience, I have to clench money just like this, to, no, it wasn't that bad experience. Actually, I learned a lot from this experience. And really, I know that money is just nothing but a tool and the energy that ebbs and flows, just like everything else in this universe. I don't have to clench onto it so hard. I just know that it's just as it flows away from me, it'll come back to me sometimes. It may even come back tenfold if we're on an ascending type of plane. But that depends on what type of mental state do you want to have around money. Or you can replace money with anything you're trying to change your mental state around. And you can just watch it come to you. So, the next thing I also wanted to touch on is if you can't change your polarity, there's a good chance you will not be able to change your external world. Your external world is going to be reflective of you being able to master the self and knowing who you are and knowing what you're standing for within said circumstance and in that mental state. So, let me get some water because I didn't realize that I had been talking for like 30 minutes straight. Okay, so I guess before I touch on the next stuff, I'll just look at nominees. Okay. All right. So I got a lot from the YMA. YMA states that the start of awareness by looking within and realizing your external, I guess you mean world, is a reflection of the internal. Is just the beginning. It's just the last and final step that most teachers and gurus don't touch on. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's a great book, but only thing it's missing is the last and final step. Once you realize everything it touches on, it's an external place that also, but within this far present moment. I just wanted to stop. Disappoint. Okay. Um, Will mentioned the force. That's one way to look at it. As far as spiritual, um, I didn't realize that you become aware and change your vibration instead of messing your own moves. What's the next thing after that? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we could touch on that after I finish talking about the axioms, the hermetic axioms. All right. I'm sorry. I thought that it was something else that we were just expunging upon about what we were already talking about. So back to this. So the law of rhythm. The law of rhythm can be neutralized by the law of polarity, but the reason why that can happen is because the law of rhythm happens within the confines of the polarity. So you got your two opposite poles. In between there is the law of rhythm. So anything you shift from on these polarities can go ahead and neutralize whatever rhythm's already in place. So whatever mental state that you're already in or whatever rhythm you already see happening in your life and you're trying to change that frequency, just go ahead and switch the poles up, which is what I had briefly mentioned earlier. Also, to overcome a law, you can do so by counterbalancing it with another law. As you already know, counterbalancing anything, if you view the scales, anything like that, all you gotta do is put something that's of equal weight on the opposite foot. And that's how you neutralize. And use the laws from the higher planes to overcome the laws from the lower planes. So once you, in this physical plane and in our current mental planes, once you master that and you learn how to master the self, then from there you can begin to master other things on these lower planes as well, while we're also still continuing to serve on the higher planes from there. But then you can use those lessons that you're learning from the higher planes to be able to bring down and teach those lessons on the planes lower than that. And the best place to start with that is just, first of all, just knowing who you are. It's the I am. And then from there, realizing that the all is mind and that the universe is mental. Now, in the comment section, why I may want to touch on what is the next move after you master your own moves. From there, at this point, I'm really talking about just learning how to change your own external world for your own self and where to begin with that. So this is more so about the basics. From there, I feel like it's just a choice of your own. Where are you trying to go with it? So for me personally, where I'm trying to go with it, it's changing a lot of stuff that I've already have written down. Like I don't want to, I'm not going to share it right now on the channel. I'm probably going to share it in the future, like what I was doing at this point in time. But right now, I'm already seeing the shift in me just go ahead and incorporating these basic moves and me just remembering my foundation with that stuff and just continuing to cycle these through until it is something that's easy for me and I can master that state within myself. Now, I've already feel confident about a lot of other things, like for example, I don't really try to let my emotions get the best of me. For the most part, I can typically choose how to handle that and to be in control of that. So, yeah. I guess if you want to look at it like that, then yes, self mastery, but it is the final step. But I guess you can look at that as like an additional step because all we're doing is just running through the basics again until you become a master of those steps. So, yeah, self mastery, I guess you could say. So, that's what I feel about it for me. Because once you master yourself, then you can master everything and everyone else around you. So, I know that was a lot. I feel like I shot through a lot in like 35 minutes. So, with a lot of that being said, self mastery is still a form of ego. It wasn't necessarily about you getting rid of the ego. So, yeah, it wasn't necessarily about that. It was more so about mastering yourself and your state of mind in order to shift the external world around you. Now, if we're just trying to completely use our ego and become completely yogi, which ain't nothing wrong with that. Um, you could do that too, but that's a different type of path. They're going down something more specific. So, yeah. So, yep, that's where we're at. So, I'm open to like conversation. I want to talk about it. Question is, once it's shifted, then what's next? What would you like for me next? In reality, like, the more and more I was not just even just sitting with these principles, but the more I was just reflecting on how life was and then how easily I shifted my life. Like in the past couple of days, just from a simple thought, I was like, shit's got to really be a video game. Like, that's really how I'm looking at it. We could change this at any given point, really. So it's where do you feel you should go from here? Now, if you're trying to go off intuition, then that's when you need to get quiet and get one with God, sit and speak with God. And, and from there, should be able to hear your intuition to let you know where you should go from there intuitively. Or are you trying to make a decision in your conscious world and then go in and shift your subconscious world so it can be a reflection in your physical world? So we all have a choice within that matter. Just from your viewpoint and where you stand and where I think you meant where you're headed without sharing your plan. What is the destination? So the destination really, which I'm already sitting in the essence of me, you know, holding that mental and emotional place, is just another state that I prefer to be in. See where you going. I wish. I mean, right now is a good chance to talk about it. Um, you know, I'm open to the floor. I know we had some people in. I know some people probably left out because, attention spans. But I'm open to the conversation. So, like I was just sharing, um, that destination, I'm just really just shifting everything to where I would prefer for it to be. Like, I don't have to allow my external world or the current vibration I was on, oxymoron, the vibration that I was on to dictate how my inner world should be. No, I'm going to change my inner world, which is going to subsequently change my outer world. And I'm going to continue to live on within that because apparently that is the frequency I want to be on. It's like changing the radio, but it's more so within your mind. So, didn't know if there was anything else that we wanted to touch on or any questions about any of the principles, things of that nature. If you come in later for this video, leave a comment and I don't mind. I try to reply to all the comments that I get. So if, you know, I don't see you in this live or I don't get to talk to you, just know I probably could try to talk to you at a later point whenever y'all come across it. I understand where you're going. It's just too much for this comment box. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I don't know if you could summarize or give like a bullet point as to what you were trying to hit on within the subject of me sharing the hermetic principles that have been helping me out these past couple of days. And I'll probably give us a couple more minutes before I head off. Mm, 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 mm. But yeah, so within like looking at how it's a lot one day, because I like this topic. Oh yeah. Um, I mean, shoot. I mean, we got nothing but time before I roll out. So, if nothing comes through or nobody says anything, then I'm probably gonna roll out sooner than later. But because I really just wanted to talk about this and talk about my experience that I've had. So yeah. But within everything that I had been experiencing and that I am currently still experiencing on the physical plane, like it is it it's a shocker, but it's not a shocker at the same time because I've manifested other things before, and some were intentional, some not as intentional. Like I didn't even realize I was manifesting at the time until like my experience with said things or people kind of like showed me. I was like, wait a minute, didn't I just think about this like the other day? And then I was just like, okay, well, be on, and moved on with my life. I didn't know this was gonna happen. Like, yeah. Even other forms of manifestation that have pretty much been good to use. The 369 method has been pretty darn good. It's been pretty darn good. Some things I've seen already came to fruition. Other stuff has yet to, manifest in the physical plane. I get what you get what I'm saying. But I'm really on the same type of energy, but it's different in some ways. I would like to express that and share points of view, something you can share. Um, you could probably like bullet point them. You can bullet point them. This is a conversational style platform anyway, so I prefer to talk to the Vibe Tribe anyway. About these things and expunge upon that, or to hear about their experiences or what they currently got going. So, um, I don't know what to tell you, but oh, in your journey. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be a safe space, but yeah. So, but yeah. But within that, just like I was saying, the 369 method has been like very helpful for me also when it came to manifesting. And then just realizing that you don't need a lot of those external things. Really, it's just a shift of the thought, you know? So, or even just shifting your thoughts in order to shift your emotions, and therefore the shifting your emotions shifts your subconscious, and then your subconscious ends up sending the signal and the frequency change for you to shift into a different physical plane. And then once you enter that physical plane as you're transitioning, now you're starting to experience those different things that you just curated within your mind and within your heart space. So yeah. And me trying to go ahead and get to those experiences and things of that nature through my own heart space, or even reverse engineering, which I thought was like, duh, it sounds so simple, but why don't we do this more often? And just looking at the states that I know I don't want to be in, and actually decoding, like, how do I feel about that? What were my experience around that? And now I'm about to reverse engineer that by swinging to the opposite pole. And remember that the pendulum is always going to swing no matter what end of the pole you end up being on. But once you get to a state that you want to be at, the pendulum is going to swing, but that don't mean you got to swing with the pendulum. So stuff is still going to happen. Are you going to allow it to take you out your frequency that you want to be on? That's where I'm at. And so with me being on that plane and that, you know, remaining there, that's what's that is what I believe is what I'm experiencing right now on the physical plane. The next thing I really want to learn about is just each of these different like minor planes and subplanes from the three great planes that I kind of touched on earlier. And I feel like there's so much more to learn and to gain from that type of knowledge. So I really need to figure out a good source for that. So I don't know if I got to look it up or go figure it out, somehow, some way. And I can learn about that too. Hope you have a great day. Just want you to say peace and love. Okay, all right then. Well, mainly because the comment section's not really doing anything right now, but I'm sure it will at some point. So I'll go ahead and manifest the vibe tribe. Always make sure that they are present and active. But that's it. That's pretty much all I had to share from my personal experience and what I've been learning and what I've practiced and the principles that have helped me shift me into my new reality. Just remember that the all is mind, the universe is mental, and I will catch y'all another time. Peace and blessings, y'all.